Welcome to the Asbestos Knowledge Empire.
What does asbestos management mean to you?
I used to really struggle with the asbestos management at my site, but now it's a breeze.
It used to be really expensive. I was paying loads, but now I've got my asbestos power team in place. It's so much easier.
Asbestos can be a pain in the arse if not handled right.
We had to stop the job because asbestos was discovered. Now we don't have that problem.
Asbestos management is easier than you think. Asbestos management. Be proactive, not reactive. Think about asbestos first, not last.
And now your hosts, best-selling authors and asbestos experts, Ian Stone and Neil Munro.
Welcome to the Asbestos Knowledge Empire. My name's Neil Munro.
I'm Ian Stone.
So today we're going to be talking about a recent report that was put out by ATaC, and it was the first annual data analysis report into asbestos in the UK buildings.
Those that don't know, ATaC is basically it's the testing and consultancy trade association for UCAS accredited laboratories surveyors in the United Kingdom.
Yeah, it was a joint publication with ATaC and NORAC, which is a kind of a similar organisation which represents, as Ian said, the asbestos consultancy industry. So the report was published after collating and analysing over 1 million lines of data. So 1 million lines of samples, references, I would expect. So these are all kind of items of suspect materials.
Yeah, and it would be considered sample points, samples that are collected, samples that haven't been collected but they've been presumed, those kind of lines of data. So if you've got a building and, for instance, you've got an asbestos mastic pad underneath your sink, that would be considered one line of data. And if you had an asbestos insulating board wall, that would be considered another line of data. So 1 million lines of asbestos data.
Yeah, probably worthy of pointing out that this is the first time that two asbestos organisations or representatives of the industry have come together to work together and publish this report. It is a step towards something that's like me and Ian have spoken about this before, about there does seem to be a bit of a movement in everyone working together for this kind of growing concern and cause to actually let's look at and review, is asbestos management and regulations actually working in this country?
Definitely. It's working together for the greater good of all of us, basically. And over the years, consultancies don't really work together. Everybody's independent on their own, just cracking on. But we all fall under the trade banner of the trade associations. And I think it's a good thing that we're communicating more, we're working together more. Things are just done better when you work together. So for consultancies to provide this data and ATaC and NORAC to review it and put this report together, I think it's only a good thing.
Yeah, definitely. So this data was collected anonymously from 20 UCAS accredited consultancies or organisations. And as I said, it looks at 1 million lines of data, delivered over 128,000 asbestos surveys.
So 128,000 asbestos surveys have been carried out, and that's produced 1 million lines of data, and that's what they've extrapolated and looked at.
Yeah, and these were across the country. As I said, none of the identifying factors of the data was used in the study. We don't actually know exactly any hotspots of areas or locations, etc.
No, we've not seen the data set, have we? We've just been presented with the report like everybody else, and we've seen the key findings, which they say that 78% contained asbestos. Just over 94,000 were domestic properties, of which 85% were found to contain asbestos, and 63% of sites visited contained damaged asbestos. So let's pick those apart a little bit. So 78% containing asbestos out of that data set. What do you reckon to that? Would you agree with that? Like, over the years, what you've seen as a consultant, what we see, what our guys see, do you think that's a fair representation?
Yeah, it is. Yeah, it's a funny one, isn't it? So we were talking about quite a few sites, million lines of data, 78% contained asbestos. Now that could be anything from a mastic pad, vinyl tile, a texture coating, anything, any asbestos product at all. That is quite high. That's I don't think people would realise that. How many times do we go to sites where people go, "Is asbestos? Is there any, like, what's the point?" And Do you know
It's
what I
the
mean?
thing of the past.
There's
It
none
don't
here.
exist. There's none here,
Are
mate.
you going to be out of a job soon or what? Or
Yeah.
But if you look at those facts, there's more asbestos in buildings than there isn't based on that.
The thing is, they are asbestos surveyors, we're asbestos surveyors, and that's our job to go and find and identify asbestos. And I think surveyors generally tend to, you should sample to prove and disprove whether something contains asbestos.
100%. Yeah.
But as you become more experienced, you tend to lean towards sampling to prove asbestos as opposed to disproving some kind of common basic building materials.
Yeah.
So plasterboard or triple MF ceiling tiles, man-made mineral fibre tiles that pretty much everybody knows is man-made. So sometimes we sample it just to disprove it.
Yeah, prevent the job stoppers and stuff
Exactly.
like that.
On refurb surveys, demo surveys, things like that. And there's definitely a case for that. But I think on the whole, we are sampling to prove something is asbestos more than not. So it is a high figure, but I think that probably is perhaps why it's a high figure as well.
Yeah. So the other point that the study kind of focuses on was looking at what condition the asbestos materials are in. So it's looking at the varying levels and the extent of the damage of the materials. So whether they were in a good condition, low damage, medium damage, or high damage, it looked at what that was. Given the kind of the underlying premise of duty to manage requirements to maintain asbestos in a good condition, the quality of damaged asbestos-containing materials does not make a good reading. Also, nearly 78% asbestos identified in the survey, if removed or worked upon, would represent unlicensed work. So what that's looking at is it's reviewed the types of materials and the types of asbestos materials that could be removed, and it's identified that most of it would work out as being non-licensed. So that would be, or put the possibility of those materials being worked upon by kind of non-HC license contractors.
Okay. But if you take just over 94,000 were domestic properties out of 128,000 surveys. So the majority of them were, it looks to me, domestic properties, and they've said which 85% found to contain asbestos.
Yep.
So for me, that says sort of social housing sector.
Yep.
Because that's predominantly where domestic properties have their surveys carried out. It's in the social housing sector where they have to, and they feel it's best practice to have the surveys to maintain them. So just thinking about what is in a normal social house, it is predominantly non-licensed materials. There's definitely licensed materials, but I would say the bulk of it is
if you're looking at a
non-licensed.
square meterage percentage, it's definitely a lot of it is
Vinyl tiles, textured coating, mastic pads, bitumen, things like that, as cement, and then you get asbestos insulated board as a licensed product.
Yeah.
But the others are in pretty much most that we see.
Yeah.
The AIB and stuff like that's within, it depends on when they were built and all the rest of it. But yeah, I would say the majority is non-licensed. So again, that's why I think that's leaning towards that.
Yeah. And the purpose for kind of highlighting that is, the point the report makes is, although non-licensed stuff is regulated, it's largely unenforced by the regulators. I don't know if they're trying to intimate that there's a lot of asbestos out there within this category, which doesn't necessarily always get the same, I know it doesn't get the same enforcement or checks upon it.
No, exactly. It doesn't. Predominantly, the regulations are there to stop people damaging asbestos, being exposed to asbestos when they're removing it, and non-licensed still falls under those. It's less regulated because there isn't a 14-day notification going to the health and safety executive or the EHO for those works. They have to submit a form, ASB 1 form, which sounds like the ASB 5. However, where the ASB 5 goes to an actual HSE officer and they look at them, the ASB 1s essentially just get registered and saved. So there's nobody actively looking at non-licensed works. The licensed part, under a 14-day notification or an ASB 5, you may get a health and safety executive or an EHO person come and actually look at your works, and they'll review it on site. It's all part of the licensing conditions where essentially when you're doing non-licensed works, nobody is coming to look at you unless by chance it happens, which is rare. And if you think about it, the majority of site inspections and things that are carried out it is the construction end of the industry. So something that is under an ASB 5 or something that is under an F10 notification for construction work. That is where
there's a flag, isn't there, to go.
Exactly.
All we're doing.
It is a flag saying, I'm doing this work, come and look at me.
Yeah.
And that's not happening on the non-licensed stuff. That's like having a painter rock up and do some painting, or a chippy coming along to door lock out.
Replacing a carpet.
Yeah.
It's something as simple as that.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of that. There's a lot going on. There's a lot of asbestos in that kind of big bracket of works and asbestos types.
Yeah, which if it's being dealt with properly, that's fine.
Yeah.
But again, I think we know that it's funny. It's those that know about asbestos and how to deal with it, they deal with it properly and it is dealt with properly.
Yeah.
It's those that don't know, the general builders, that kind of thing, that they just go and crack on.
Yeah.
They don't know the difference of a floor tile is just a floor tile.
Yeah.
Can you come and remove that for me? Yeah, of course I can.
Yeah.
So they come and crack on. So there is a big element of works that are potentially a bit of a problem with this.
Yeah. And like you said, particularly in the social housing market sector, there is. And we've touched on this before, there is a lot of asbestos in social housing. Lots of works are happening over the years. Kitchens are replaced, bathrooms are replaced, lots of insulation and energy efficiency upgrades on the properties. However, lots of asbestos it never gets touched in these domestic properties. The floor tiles in the lounge, in the dining rooms, bedrooms, etc., never get touched. Rarely the texture coatings on the ceilings get touched in those same locations. So there is lots and lots of asbestos still in these types of properties.
Definitely. And I think going back to the key findings, 63% of sites visited contain damaged asbestos. So 63%, so way more than half, has got damaged asbestos in the property. And this is in a day and age, 20 years after the duty to manage regulations came in.
Yeah.
So if we've got 63% now.
So they were damaged in the time frame between being inspected and this report, next inspection.
Exactly.
63% of all them sites were damaged in that time frame.
Yeah.
That doesn't make sense to me, does it?
I think it highlights that the amount of damaged asbestos that's out there.
Yeah, but we were saying it's poor management, isn't it?
Yes, definitely.
It's highlighting that's not accidental damage.
It's not a one-off.
No, that's either historical damage or poor management.
And it's happening across the board.
Yeah.
If 20 consultancies are clawing this data out and this is happening, this backs up what you and I have spoken about for years in the fact that asbestos management, it works, but only in a very small, finite amount of areas, I would say, because a lot of the time, again, week in, week out, day in, day out, our surveyors are going out there identifying asbestos that's been damaged. And it happens time and again. It's not a new thing. It's not a surprise. That's the standard thing that happens with asbestos, with the best will in the world, all the procedures that are in place, all the asbestos awareness that's happened, all the risk assessments and method statements and plans of work that people follow. Why are we still getting damaged asbestos week in, week out? And it just, for me, it smacks that the duty to manage isn't working in the UK. And for me, I think prevention's better than cure. And if we've still got asbestos here in 100 years, people will still be damaging asbestos because humans are humans and we'll cut corners. We won't understand information that's presented to us. We'll just crack on and go, oh, bugger, damage some asbestos.
Yeah, I think definitely what doesn't help is even with our best clients who are actively managing asbestos, taking it seriously, ingrained all the procedures into their company procedures, they actively manage it on a day-to-day basis. Those people who have ingrained it right into their kind of the way that they do business.
Their culture,
yeah. And that's what it takes to actually manage it properly.
Yeah, you can't play it, can you?
Yeah, exactly. In textbooks, the way that the asbestos regulations are written should work. In practice, unless you've got that really embodied and ingrained into your business, into your school, hospital, whatever it is, whatever site you're managing, and every single person knows about it, is aware about it, and they know what to do, and it takes a whole organisation to actually manage this properly and prevent any damage, etc. Unless you've got that, then yeah, it does start to fall off, and there does start to become problems. And overall, it doesn't really work. And what doesn't help is that the enforcement of that, do you know what I mean? The threat of not doing it properly, it's just non-existent.
Yeah, it's not really there, is it, to back it up?
So yeah, that's the issue, and that's where the industry is trying to raise this awareness to government, to the HSE, to kind of take this. We need to take this further, basically.
Yeah, it needs re-looking at, definitely. Just moving away from domestic properties and just put it into perspective, what you've just said. If you think of an organisation, let's go for schools.
Yeah.
So for that's a school to manage its asbestos properly, just to put it in perspective, who needs to know about it? The school governors, they need to know about asbestos. They need to
They're probably putting the policy together, and what is it, the policy of that school to do?
Yep. The head teacher runs with that. They're the one that are in charge and making sure enforcing it. Underneath the head, you've got department heads, stuff like that. Then you're down to teachers. So teachers need to be aware of it. If you've got asbestos in classrooms, they need to know not to post things on certain walls or on the ceiling or whatever. So you've got those. You've then got the school caretaker who's working there. Perhaps kitchen staff. Again, if you've got stuff in the kitchen, you've got dinner ladies, dinner people that come in to monitor, school monitors, to look after the kids, any construction workers that are coming into that school, any outside people that are coming into that school. So, I don't know, schools have fetes and external events put on sometimes.
Yeah,
and
visitors,
they use the school hall for productions, things like that. They all need to be told because there might be asbestos tiles in the hall. And even the school children, because school children need to know, don't kick your ball inside, you can't do this, you can't do that.
Yeah.
Don't kick the wall, don't kick those columns.
Yeah.
So you're talking literally every single person, anyone that you can ever think of going into a school needs to be made aware about asbestos, because by hook or by crook, they might come across and damage asbestos.
Yeah.
So when you think about that, is that practical?
Yeah. And there is the number one problem in a school is, do you want to, as a school, vocalise that you've got asbestos?
No, exactly, and nobody does.
Do you want to be telling the kids?
No business does, let alone schools.
No, exactly. Do you want to be informing the parents that you've got an asbestos problem?
No.
So that then works into the kind of, we can't say anything, let's keep it quiet.
Keep it to the bare minimum, people. Only those that we think might disturb it.
Yeah.
I.e. workers and the caretakers of the school. That's it. Whereas in reality, it just doesn't work in that scenario. And then, like I say, if you think about that across other scenarios, again, just anybody going into a premise, it just, on paper it works, in reality, and I think we've seen this, we've said this for years, it just doesn't work properly.
No.
So I think this it's the first in a few that have come out recently that's highlighted there is a bit of an issue. And it is a big issue. And it needs to be taken more seriously.
100%.
In this day and age, we shouldn't be having this conversation about something that kills people.
No.
It needs to be dealt with.
And particularly, it's taken this long for it to actually happen.
Yeah.
If we look at how long the control of asbestos regulations, 2012, have been in place, and the duty to manage goes back even further. It's ridiculous.
Yeah. So I think it's a good report. You can download the report from ATaC and NORAC's websites. It's a good report. It's a 28-page report, and we've just given you the headlines here and the key findings and our opinion on it. But yeah, I think it's a good thing that it's been brought out. Yeah, and it goes along with our line of, remember, asbestos first, not last.